On January 8, 1894, in the small town of Zduńska Wola, Poland, a boy was born into a poor but devout Catholic family. His parents named him Rajmund Kolbe. His early childhood passed quietly, until one day, at the age of 12, he experienced a vision that would change the course of his life. In a dream, the Virgin Mary appeared before him, holding 2 crowns in her hands, one white, symbolizing purity, the other red, symbolizing martyrdom. With a tender gaze, she asked, "My son, will you accept one of these?" Without hesitation, the boy answered, "I accept them both." That vision carved itself deep into his soul, becoming the compass for all his days, to live entirely for Mary, and to be ready to give both his purity and his very life for God. In 1907, he entered the minor seminary of the conventual Franciscan order in Lviv. His keen intellect and fervent spirit soon earned him a place in Rome, where he studied philosophy and theology. On April 28, 1918, he was ordained a priest, taking the name Maximilian Maria Kolbe. Still a student in Rome, he founded the Militia Immaculatae, the Army of the Immaculate, with a mission to bring every soul to Christ through Mary, using every legitimate means of communication at his disposal. After returning to Poland, he threw himself into the work of evangelization through the printed word and the power of media. In 1922, he launched Rycerz Niepokalane, the Night of the Immaculate, a magazine devoted to spreading the gospel and deepening devotion to Mary. 5 years later, in 1927, he founded the Missionary Center of Niepokalanów, near Warsaw. Within a short time, it had grown into a vast community of some 700 friars, the largest Franciscan friary in the world at that time. By 1938, his magazine was reaching over 1 million copies each month, carrying the good news and love for the Blessed Mother into millions of homes. In 1930, his burning missionary zeal carried him all the way to Japan, even though he did not speak the language, and brought with him only a small printing press and a few friars. Guided by prayer, he chose the city of Nagasaki to establish a printing house and a new friary, Mugenzai no Sono, the Garden of the Immaculate. Years later, that very site, thanks to his prayerful discernment, would be spared from the devastation of the atomic bomb in 1945, a fact many have taken as a sign of divine providence. In 1936, he returned to Poland to take charge of Niepokalanów. But on September 1, 1939, Nazi Germany invaded Poland. Only 18 days later, the Gestapo arrested him along with more than 40 friars, sending them first to the camp at Amtitz, then to Ostrzeżów. In December of that same year, he was released. Without hesitation, he turned Niepokalanów into a refuge for more than 3,000 displaced people, including many Jews, offering them shelter and aid under the constant watch of the occupying forces. On February 17, 1941, he was arrested again and sent to the Pawiak prison in Warsaw. By May, he was transferred to Auschwitz, branded with the number 16,670. Even in that hell on earth, he lived out charity to the full, sharing his meager rations with those weaker than himself, hearing confessions, praying with others, encouraging fellow prisoners, and carrying himself with a calm so unshakable that even the most brutal guards found themselves unsettled. Then came July 1941. A prisoner escaped. By the camp's cruel law, 10 others would be chosen to starve to death in punishment. Among those selected was a man named Franciszek Gajowniczek, who cried out in anguish for his wife and children. Without hesitation, Maximilian stepped forward, walked up to the commandant, and asked to take the man's place. The commandant agreed. Stripped of their clothes, Maximilian and 9 others were locked in a dark cell with no food and no water. But instead of the usual screams of despair, the cell echoed with prayers and hymns. He led the men in prayer until, one by one, they collapsed. After 2 weeks, on August 14, 1941, when he was the last left alive, a guard ended his life with a lethal injection of phenol into his arm. His body, along with those of his fellow prisoners, was taken to the camp's crematorium. In a policy meant to erase every trace of their crimes, the Nazis disposed of the ashes with complete disrespect, often scattering them into rivers or dumping them into pits. This was an act of coercion with no funeral rites, and stands in stark contrast to the teaching of the Catholic Church, which requires that cremated remains be kept intact and laid to rest in a cemetery or other sacred place. Cf. Instruction Ad Resurgendum Cum Christo, Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, 2016. 30 years later, on October 17, 1971, Pope Paul VI declared him blessed, with the man he had saved standing among the witnesses. On October 10, 1982, Pope John Paul II canonized him, proclaiming him a martyr of charity. From the vision of 2 crowns at the age of 12 to his final breath in the dark of that starvation cell, the life of Saint Maximilian Maria Kolbe shines as a radiant testament that love is stronger than death, and as a faith lived fully through sacrifice and forgiveness. His life was proof that love can outlast hate, that light can outshine even the darkest night. If this moved you, don't just click away. Join us, subscribe now, and keep walking with us through the lives of saints who still change the world, one heart at a time. Why Saint Maximilian Maria Kolbe, and not just Saint Maximilian Kolbe? His birth name was Rajmund Kolbe. When he joined the conventual Franciscan order and made his final vows, he took the additional religious name Maria, a tradition among many male Franciscans to show deep devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary. That's why in official Catholic records, such as Vatican News, Catholic News Agency, and canonization documents, his full name appears as Saint Maximilian Maria Kolbe. However, in everyday speech, especially in media titles, or for international audiences unfamiliar with adding Maria to a man's name, it's common to shorten it to Saint Maximilian Kolbe for simplicity and easier recognition. In short, Saint Maximilian Maria Kolbe, full official Vatican-approved name, used in formal documents and full biographies. Saint Maximilian Kolbe, shorter, more common form, often used in titles and public references.